Welcome back. Are we back? We keep shouting until we look like we're back. All right, thanks you guys. Thanks for rolling with us, taking a minute to stretch your legs. Awesome. So we have our dream team of panelists up front.
Where are they?
So I was going to introduce them, but I actually think they can introduce themselves better because they are awesome and will do a great job. But we have Lisa, Stephanie, and Jean. And Lisa, will you introduce kind of like what year you are and the major things you're involved with?
Yes.
Keep it short. I know you guys are all involved with a million things. So.
Okay. So I am from the year of 2023, so the class just before you guys. And
how long have you been voluntold though?
Oh, I've been voluntold for a long time. So my spouse is a master gardener also. So I have been Lisa voluntold for many years. So I've been participating in lots of events and doing lots of things with the master gardeners for a while. But in terms of actually being a master gardener myself, mostly it was like plant here, no, turn that plant around. So that was my voluntold activity. So let's see. So I am involved with public events. I do the computer stuff, the technology stuff for public events. And I am involved with the plant sale and the plant festival and the demo garden and
Cocoa Cinnamon.
And Cocoa Cinnamon. That's it. That's it. That's me.
All right, Stephanie.
Hey everybody. I'm in the same class, 2023. What'd you say? Tell everything I'm in?
The highlights. That would be a long list.
So I was one of those people during those little small breakout sessions when they're like, hey, what do you want to focus on for your volunteer part? And I was like, I don't know. I'll just like try everything. So I think, all right, I'm on the initial training committee. I'm on the advisory committee.
Vice chair.
I'm our vice chair. The social committee, the plant sale committee. I started a little special project with the pollinator census. So pollinator pals. I feel like there's something else, but I'm just forgetting. What do we call
Partnerships in gardening.
The Partnerships in Gardening Committee. If you need me to do anything, committee, because I'm always like so yeah, that's it.
See, this is the group of people that Ashley has figured out do not know the word no.
Yeah.
Jean?
I'm from the class of 2009, so I've been a master gardener for quite a long time. I currently chair the Durham Garden Forum, which is an education venue that I would encourage all of you to join. But I also love office duty, do that routinely, some public events, and over that long span I've done different things, some Briggs Garden things. And I guess the bottom line is try lots of different things. You'll find things that you really enjoy and pursue, and that's kind of what I've done.
Awesome. All right, so for our first question, what do you guys like about interacting with extension clients, and why do you volunteer for what you volunteer for? And Jean, we'll start with you for this one.
Okay. Learning. Frankly, it's a two-way street. I really enjoy engaging with clients because I'm always learning something. And then the ability to provide a client with a solution when they're struggling with a gardening problem has a lot of fulfillment, if you will. But I emphasize the learning aspect. I don't think over all of those years I've spent one time in the office that I have not learned something as a result of a client question.
I'll let you guys answer as you feel.
Just go. Okay. I'll go next. Definitely learning. That's a good one. So I'm just really curious, and there are a lot of events that we have that are interesting to me. So I kind of just show up because I'm like, ooh, this sounds interesting. And I almost hate calling them clients because they just feel like extended friendly folks that you just like end up chatting with. So, and that's interesting to me. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm always like, ooh, why did I sign up for this? I'm a little anxious. But then I'm there and it turns out to be fun. So it's just the adventure of like, I don't know what's gonna happen or who's gonna stop by the table, but it ends up being a fun time. So I'm just in it kind of to hang out.
I think Jean hit it on the head. I think mostly for me it's because I'm fairly new. I'm very new at this, and I don't know a lot about gardening. I didn't come from a gardening background other than plant here, but I really like what I learned from them, and finally at this point I'm finally being able to give some good answers and understand where the resources are and being able to provide just information. So for me it's just a way to get out there and give back to the community.
So that's actually can lead into some of our next questions. What % of questions do you think you actually know the answer to off the top of your head, and what do you do when you don't know the answer? Gene.
Okay, so that's an excellent question because it really gets to the heart of being a Master Gardener volunteer. Over time, over a long period of time, you'll start to build up, and again, it's research-based answers, right? You'll start to build up a base knowledge that you'll be able to embed in your head, that you'll be able to answer questions. But even after my, 16, 17 years, whatever it is, it's really a low percentage of being able to really answer off the top of your head and be confident that there's a research base. And remember, people are going to come to you with questions often that are difficult. Today's world with Google and all the search engines, people do a lot of searching and research on their own. So oftentimes they will come with, haven't been able to find the answer. So you shouldn't, my advice, there's two issues about engaging with the client. Number one, your own personal confidence in answering the question. You ought to go into it with the idea, I probably won't have the answer. Even with all of your training, with all the experts, you probably won't have the answer. But I will say that's the fun of it. The fun of it is using all the fabulous tools that are available to get to the answer. And that then builds a little bit more knowledge on your part, and then you'll be able to answer the question with confidence. And you should never worry about, geez, I'm sorry, I really want to give you the right answer. And I'll call you back, I'll get back to you, I just need to do a little bit more research. That's never a problem. Sometimes in the office, they'll hang with you. We'll do the search online and get to the research-based answer. But believe me, it's actually a very low percentage. I mean, there's some that, azaleas like acid and all of that stuff. But beyond that, you'll get questions, and it's a low percentage that you'll be able to tick them off at the top of your head. For me, anyway.
Me too.
Agreed. Mine is definitely low. I tend to, every event you do, you're always going to be with someone, right? And so I'm usually like, and every now and then there's that one thing like they're saying, because it's been asked so many times, what's the deer-resistant plant? Oh, I know this one. It just depends. It's a great answer because when you give the answer like, oh, these are the deer-resistant plants, there's someone saying, yeah, I planted that and the deer ate it. And it's like, oh my God. So it's just doing it over and over and being able to say, this is what it should be. However, it always depends. There's no finite answer. So just being able to have a conversation, let's chat about it. It's going to depend. It could be this, depends on what you got going on. But to have I've answered 10%, no, I don't even know if I've ever been able to say, this is what you do, except I know that blueberries need acidic soil. So, and again, I got that confidence because of Ashley being able to, drill into our heads that it's science-based, but we're not here to say, oh, this is it without a shadow of a doubt. No one's asking us to do that. And I can't remember who gave me this kind of rule of thumb, but if someone is asking for something, especially if you're doing office duty, like to go ahead and give them options like from the toolbox, from Clemson University, give them some options and pull out the thing in that article where you're like, well, this is what caught my eye for your question, but here's the resource, you can take a look at it, you have it, it's emailed to you, is kind of nice, because again, you're not saying this is it emphatically, no matter what, because there's always that however, and so you're giving them options, and I think that's really all they're asking for.
And I think it's just the feeling comfortable saying, I don't know, and I always say it's master gardeners, like in quotes, because I am not a master at any of this. So, but just being able to feel comfortable saying that I don't know, and from the public events group. So the public events group is mostly made up of 2023, the committee is mostly made up of 2023 grads. And so we were all brand new at doing this. And so we put together a bunch of resources and actually built us a website that's Durham Gardening Resources. So that's a great resource, and we broke it up into sections, and if you want to.
Oh, I'll give them out in a minute, but you guys will get a cool.
Yeah, we made bookmarks that we could give out at events that have, the websites that you can go to, the Toolbox website, the Gardening Resources website, the email for Ask a Master Gardener a question. So just being able to give that to people and saying to them, oh, here's a great resource so you can read some more, or some answers. But sometimes you get paired with somebody who knows a lot, and I'm just like, oh yeah. Somebody came up to us at the farmer's market a couple weeks ago and said, I need to prune my peach tree. And I'm like, but right then Jeff Canters walks by, and he's like an expert at pruning fruit trees, and I'm like, Jeff, come on over here for a second. And then I get to learn too, so then I know a little bit more for the next time. So
that actually leads us to a couple other questions. So in terms of developing your go-to sources of information, whether it's the people, the other master gardeners who you can always count on as resources, or whether it's the websites and online resources that you really like, how do you kind of develop that, right? Is it just over time? Are there easy places to start?
I have found, and again, you will find your own go-to. But my personal go-to is embedded in the intranet website, is a search engine that pulls up all research-based answers to a particular problem you might put in there. And it's not just from NC State. The nice part about it is it's from Clemson or Maryland or different. And of course, you have to then parse out, well, if it's from Washington, does that answer apply to us? But you get lists and lists of research-based articles, and that normally is my go-to. Once I get the problem properly stated in the search, that always provides a great resource. And as was mentioned, other master gardeners, you'll find over time, other master gardeners start to specialize in certain things, pruning of fruit trees, tomatoes, turf. Although we want to get less turf, there still are turf. And by the way, you'll get a lot of turf questions. So start to think in your mind, who are good insect identifiers, plant identifiers, and that's the most challenging for me personally, is identify a plant with a little leaf and all of that. That's tough. Plant identifiers, pruning experts. You'll start to identify people in the master gardener community that really are experts, and just send them a note, give them a call. They'll be happy to provide some information. So search engine, master gardener experts would be my two go-tos.
I do a lot. When I search Google, I always put NCSU at the end of my search, you know, brown tomato, NCSU, because that will bring up the educational stuff. Sometimes I'll do EDU, but if I want something that's more sort of southeast, I'll do NCSU, and that pulls up a lot of articles, not just from NCSU, but from local areas. So that's another good place to start, and then the Gardening Resources website that we put together is another good one for me.
I think a go-to for me is the toolbox, but I think for the events that I end up signing up for, it tends to be like using these apps, you know, the Seek and iNaturalist, and because people are usually like, can you help me identify something? Those are just the questions that I tend to always get. So I don't know, it's just easy, and most people are like, yeah, I heard about that. So they're, you know, however, it's always, I'm always, I don't know, I just have this thing in my head of a rule of 3. Just go to 3 places. Like, don't just go to that one, because you're gonna find that you just get more information, and then the thing that's common, then you can kind of just feel confident, and that's the answer. And that's why I tell the community, the rule of thumb, just, you know, you can use that app, but, you know, go ahead and check something else out, and just make, you know, kind of like, I don't know, just see that it's a common thing. But I am not as experienced, so I don't really have a whole bunch. The master gardeners are so knowledgeable. Get to know people, look at their profile. When you hear someone say Jeff Cantor is into pruning, look him up so that you, when you see his face, you're like, that's the pruning guy. I seriously do that. I go through the directory constantly. I heard someone say that name. Who's that face? What's their bio? It's super helpful. These people are, what you have a family here now. It's a wealth of knowledge. So they're my go-to more than really almost the resources, to be honest.
Awesome. So I'm gonna do one more question, and then we're gonna open up maybe for a question. But can you guys stay around for the break as well if folks have questions then?
Sure.
If we get food.
Yes. You know we snack. Okay. So what would you say are the really essential skills for working with the public, or do you have a trick for helping to establish rapport? Like, what do you do when you're first talking with someone to kind of get it going?
Yeah, that, to me, that's very important, because I will always say, when someone is coming towards you, or mostly on public events, if they're coming towards you and they're kind of looking and they're curious, that's the time to engage. Do you garden? How's your garden doing? Do you have any problems with your garden? And once you break that ice, then the dialogue starts. I think it's really important not to just stand there. It's really important to reach out, and in a friendly reach out, to break the ice, because that person typically might be, you know, the thing says master gardeners, right? Oh my God, I'm a new gardener. How am I going to communicate with this master gardener? So you really have to try to get past all of that and engage the individual with what's on their mind relative to gardening. And it's amazing what will then occur. You know, either I'm new to the area, I don't know how to do this, bought a house that has old stuff, I need to get rid of it, the lawn's not doing well in the shade. You just can't imagine. And then once you start that process, and that's the fun part of it, by the way. You have this dialogue that goes back and forth, and well, how can we help? And then sometimes you'll have some answers off the top of your head. Can I take your information? I can get back to you. It's fun. That is really, really fun.
So for me, I'm an introvert, and big time, and so it's hard, you know, like, 'cause my it's hard for me to go to public events. It's hard for me to like start to engage. But I had a job, you know, back in those working days. I had a job where I really had to be an extrovert most of the time, and so I know how to do it. And so really just engaging people that way. And once you get going, then you're fine. You know, it's that dread the night before, the dread that morning, you know, like, oh God, I gotta talk to people. but it really, it's fun, and you know, once you get rolling, and just an opening question like that, like we all have our favorite opening questions, you know, for kids, it's, you know, what's your favorite bug? You know, just to try and engage people in conversation, and then again, once you break that ice, you're good to go.
So I'm, I guess I would call myself an introverted extrovert. So I have my people time, and then I get to a moment where I'm just like, I realize I'm not talking anymore because I'm just peopled out. So I'm very aware of that. So my little go-to is always just to say hello. I don't care if you have a question. I don't even, you know, maybe you were just walking by. I'm still gonna say, hey, how are you doing? Thanks for coming. That's my thing. If you have a question, great. If you just wanted to walk by and be like, hey, that's still fine, but I feel like what I'm doing there is, one, I'm treating someone how I wanna be treated. So I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind. If I walk past a tent of people and they're all chatting, and then I walk by and everyone stops talking, that's unnerving. And I will tell you that has been my experience in life. So it stays before me to treat people how I would want to be treated. Why did everyone just stop talking? So I don't do that. So when someone walks by, even if I'm talking to someone, I'm like, hey, thanks for coming by. If you have any questions, let us know. And then I let them do their thing. If they want to come, they come. If they want to walk away, they walk away. Because I also don't want everyone to feel like, well, now I got to ask a question. She's, oh, Lord. You know, like, no. I'm just saying, hey. That's my thing. Just feeling comfortable, letting you know I'm representing the extension. I'm representing Master Gardeners. And someone's going to walk by and say, I walked past the Master Gardener table, and someone was really nice to me because they said hello. That's all I keep in my mind. That's my biggest like focus at any event where the community is going to be there.
Could I add one more thing?
Of course.
Just one more thing about public events in particular. And I'm sure you've all experienced it. If you walk by a booth and all the representatives are sitting, chatting with one another, that's not an inviting encounter. So if you're at a high volume, River is a good example, a high volume public event activity, at least one of the Master Gardeners should be standing at the table. Don't find yourself just chatting among yourselves. It's not a very warm and welcoming kind of picture.
All right, I think we have time for one, maybe two questions. Do we have a question from the audience? I know you guys are nervous about something. You want us to about something.
The only thing I'm nervous about is it's hard to believe Lisa is an introvert.
See, I play the extrovert. I play the extrovert when I'm out in public, and then I crawl back
She
in.
plays hockey.
Yeah, we work together now. How many times? Two times?
Several times. Yeah.
Several times. It seems like you always.
I can be an extrovert when I have to be.
Yeah.
I didn't have to rescue you or anything, so.
Tim, did you have a question?
Well, just a comment more, I guess. I've been very uncomfortable with this notion that in 2 weeks I'm going to be a master of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
In January. It kind of just reinforces how much I don't know about gardening, the more I've kind of been part of this program. And I've been through university master's programs, and I felt the same way. After 3 years, you get a degree that says you're a master, but all I really realize is how much I don't know about that.
That's how you know you're learning.
So I appreciate you talking about that's kind of an issue, and it made me realize that we're almost more like librarians.
Right.
Absolutely.
One of the
Librarians don't need to know about every book that's in their library,
Yeah.
but they can help you find the information. So
Yeah, I feel like you know you're learning when you start having the dread of how little you know, right? Like that means the process is working. Yeah.
I was just curious about whether or not the Master Gardeners as a whole leverage AI, like ChatGPT, when finding solutions for people. Just because I'm noticing that with Google, more and more they're using those AI generated summaries. Yeah, and that's what comes up first. So I'm just curious if that is a tool that is used. I'm judging by Ashley's face.
Scott actually knows more about this than anyone else in
That's
the
an
room.
interesting question.
We are not currently using it, but you know a little bit about what is going on.
You were highlighting the larger cooperative extension search feature that searches all of the extensions around the United States. There's a group within that, and there's a North Carolina-based human involved with that who's built using ChatGPT specifically, pointed it at all of those resources, so you can chat with it, and it will only look at those resources and produce answers.
Oh, so is that like a GPT in ChatGPT, or is there a different?
No, it is on their website. It's on a. It is not that.
Okay.
It's not GPT that I'm aware of. I haven't searched for it,
Okay.
but it's featured in a web application in a website. It's in a resources section. Maybe I think I sent it
I can
to you
share it.
before, but we can send it out again.
So it's like a vetted, supported.
Yes, I used it when I did office training. I used it to handle a question about lagoons or something like that I don't know anything about, and I found several resources, and I noted that something from Minnesota is probably not relevant for this client.
That's
but
what I
found
was gonna
some
say,
things.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I got three resources, I think,
Yeah.
and it was really great. Also, if you're going to use those tools, ChatGPT, Claude, or Claude, or things like that, you can direct them to be very specific to only the resources you point to them. So I often drop in URL, like for my project, summarize this plant for me in this specific way, and do not create anything that you don't know, pull it only from there. So you can,
That's helpful.
Yeah, and I would say that with those things, it's the same in some ways as using so many other resources that we have, right? Where it's gonna give you a whole bunch of information, and our job is still to comb through and verify and make sure it makes sense and do all that kind of work. So, but it's a great way to get started. And so I'll share that AI link. Do we have one more question? Yes.
Yeah, so when you're sitting at a booth, right, and people ask you something that you don't know the answer to, you look it up for them in front of them and try to kind of walk them through whatever it is through the plant toolbox?
It depends on how busy
Give
you
your
are.
phone number and I'll
Yeah.
get back to you?
Both,
or anyway?
all of that, yeah. It just depends on how busy things are. Like if you don't have a lot of people there, then that's absolutely fine to look it up with them. If you're busy and there's lots of people, then taking an email address or a phone number is a good way to do it as well.
Yeah, it depends on the question. Sometimes, you can get a lot, doing searching on your phone and you can provide the answer. But if you're reluctant with what you're finding, get the information, get an email address or a phone number and say, I'll get back to you. Give them a timeline, say, I'll get back to you within the next day, so that they know when to expect your call or information.
Do we then email from our personal email accounts? Is that?
No, from the, well, frankly, I've done it both ways. Because I was more interested in giving the information to them. But normally it's a phone call. I always felt more comfortable with the phone call. So if the person gave me a phone number and an email, I would prefer the phone call first.
So I'm gonna chime in. You do not forget the extension is a resource. So you can, offer, Monday through Friday, you can contact the extension is an option. You can also respond from the extension. So maybe you partner with who's working in the office and say, hey, this person was at this event. They would like an email or a phone call. Here's the info. If you looked it up, that's fine, but it comes from here. Because, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. There have been some people who are like, oh, I'll just reach out to the extension. And some people are like, that would be great if someone from the extension would reach out to me. So you can make that, you can work it how it works best for you. If you say, again, work with the person in the office. And if that person's like, oh, I can look it up, I got it, thanks. But if you're like, well, I did do some research, I have some stuff that you can add to that, so I'm not dumping it all on you. However you all work together, I definitely say do that. I've done it, it works.
How do you find out who's working, like, how do you do that?
And
It doesn't matter.
yeah,
It doesn't matter,
you-
because there's
you
gonna be
call-
somebody there, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll even see in the intranet, right, every day, well, not every day, but Monday through Friday when we're open, you can sign up.
Right, I just
So-
was like not sure.
but you could even you could email the Master Gardener email and say
Okay.
like, I talked with this person, this is their contact information, they have a question about this, here's 3 resources I think might be relevant. You know, and could you please get back with them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I've always felt that our Master Gardener brand should be responsive.
Yeah.
So if there's something that's coming across at a public events, I just don't want to dump it
Mm-hmm.
and not make sure the question didn't get answered. So that's why sometimes I might go overboard and take responsibility on the spot. Or if I pass it on to the Master Gardener office, follow up, make sure, because, you know, we need to be responsive. And sometimes you go into the office, you find phone calls that have, not anymore, but we used to find phone calls haven't been answered for 3 or 4 days. That's not a good brand, right? We want to be responsive. So in a public events, even though it's a tough question, you want to make sure, again, it's a client with a problem, you want to make sure that person gets an answer, the research-based answer.
And I don't know what the policy is, like, I can access the Master Gardener email from home. So I don't have to come into the office.
Right.
You know, like I can pretend that I'm here at home.
We can all log on to the intranet. The search engine that I talked to you about just now, which is my go-to, is embedded at the bottom, I can't remember the exact words, but it's embedded in one of the bottom identifiers. You go to that, you can go home and get the answer and call the person back, or, you know, I always feel like the person needs to get an answer to their question as soon as possible.
I have a further question about this. So I'm doing a public engagement this weekend at the farmer's market. Let's say it's crazy busy and I have to take some person's information, but it's, you know, before noon on a Saturday, and I'd like to get the information to them before the weekend is over in case they're like, I'm trying to do this today, or whatever the thing might be, or I need a question answered today. So I go home and I look up the information on my own time and then respond to them during that, you know, that window that I've tried to give to answer them within. How do I log those hours? Are those volunteer hours?
Yeah, absolutely.
additional?
That research and response time, those are volunteer hours, that's a contact. Like, I would
Okay.
do all of that. And,
Okay.
you know, I will say that, like, I agree that we should be responsive. And also, I think it's reasonable to say that if you ask us a question on Saturday morning, we might be getting back to you Monday.
Right. Right.
You know, and I think that's perfectly fine to say. I would just set that expectation for people.
Okay.
Right? Like, ultimately, like, we're a bunch of volunteers for a government organization, like, giving advice for free. So, like, a Saturday to Monday turnaround seems
Right.
acceptable to me.
That's right.
Right?
Very few emergency gardening
Right.
questions.
Yeah, like, hang up, dial 911.
Yeah.
This might be more for you
Yeah.
actually, but in terms of logging into that Gmail account, is that information on the internet at all, or is it? I know that it's like they are in the office, but is there a way, if, like, I did get a question, I want to go home and work on it that day, I can't get in the office to.
Yeah, so we will, basically the office Gmail account, we ask you to stay in the office doing that until basically we approve you to be doing it from home. So we'll get there,
Okay, fair enough.
but you will get approved kind of over time when we like make sure you're not.
Totally fair.
Yeah. All right, let's take one more question and then we might take the rest of the questions at the break. Is that okay? Do we have a general question between the two of you?
Mine's general, I think.
All right, let's try
I
it.
just want clarity. Are we permitted to respond to a person at a public event with our own personal email if we have the information, or would you prefer us not to?
Yeah, it's probably.
That is at your comfort level.
I do.
I do not.
do.
Yeah, I do not ask anyone to do that at all. But if you feel comfortable doing that, you can.
Okay.
And usually what I do is at the end I say, if you have additional questions, and then I give them that email.
Yeah.
You know, and I say to them, this is my personal email, I'm just getting back to you because I did the research on blah, 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 whatever. But, yeah, I mean, again, most of the people, I mean, I can't imagine people abusing,
Yeah.
I have a tomato question, now!
Alright.
But do what feels comfortable.
That's most important.
Period.
Do what feels right for you. Don't feel pressured to eat your personal if you're not there. All right. Thank you so much to our panelists.